Now, on behalf of the Socialists and Democrats, that group's president, Mr. Svoboda.
President, at the outset, I'd like to underscore what the President of this House has already said as to what has happened in Boston. We extend our full sympathy and condolences to those who've suffered in Boston.
Fair integration was what you said was the headline of your speech, and I can agree, not with all the details, but we'll come to that, because I think that's what about in Europe we have to fight for. The fact that we're in a disaster situation in Europe today, with the unemployment, but also with the social situation and the political situation. You mentioned also many citizens in Europe are not in agreement with European policies and more against Europe as such. And that is a danger. It's not about only specific policies. We have to take up the citizens' concern, I think, absolutely, and to be serious about it without going into populism. But then, Prime Minister, we also have to be fair to the citizen. You spoke about the situation of the Finnish situation some years ago. Finland was not yet in the Eurozone. There was not yet a Eurozone. And it's different if you're in the Eurozone or not. Also, the Latvia case, which is mentioned again and again, was not a case of the Eurozone. So the Eurozone, the situation is different, and we have to have different kind of solidarity and more European solutions. Secondly, we are in a depression. We're in a recession. We're in a recession which is even promoted by the policy of the European Union, unfortunately. How can we convince citizens to reform, for example, the labour market, when the main message from Europe is on reducing the social fabric, reducing and cutting social expenditure, even expenditure, and I come back, for example, to Portugal, expenditure on education. You spoke with the citizens in Portugal. It's a very good thing that you were there. Absolutely, I want to agree. But did you ask the citizens what they think about the Troika and the European Union policies in their own country? On a Troika which agreed on a package where the Constitutional Court of Portugal said this is unconstitutional. This is European policy as it is seen by many citizens today. And therefore we have to change our policy. We'll come to that immediately. Yes, and you are right, fair integration means also cooperation between the North and the South. I've been several times in Finland and always tried to meet institutions, start-ups in the technological field. Finland has a lot of things to show. It's not about the macroeconomic only, it's also on this macroeconomic development. Why don't we use more of these cooperative models between the North and the South to deliver some of the possibilities how reforms and changes can be done? But let me come back to the macroeconomic situation. The Commission President, Vice President Rehn very often say, well, next semester will be better. They said it now for many years already, it will be better. Soon we were at the end of the tunnel, but we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel because it's not here. And then again we have these promises. This is what citizens in Europe see today. And the Troika de facto is malfunctioning. More and more the members of the Troika are quarrelling who is responsible for what. I think we should stop that. The Commission is responsible for the policies. And we don't like many of the things Mr. Rehn does, but he is a responsible person. I want him to be responsible, not the troika of IMF and ECB, which more and more we don't see what it is. It's not a democratically based institution. The Commission is elected for that. This is democratically based. Let's stop with that game. Let's have the Commission have the responsibility. And of course, the Council has to agree, but then we have to change this kind of tendency, because citizens are more and more annoyed by this kind of activities, and therefore we have to change. The same is true in Cyprus, not only in Portugal, in other countries. Finally, to the growth element. We need more growth in order to convince citizens to do the necessary reforms. We may agree on several of the reforms, but psychologically, again, it is not possible to ask to do the reforms if there is no hope that at the end of the reform there is some possibility to develop. Then always people say, well, there's no money for growth. There's no money. We produced a study from an independent institution, and fortunately the Commission took it also up. 1 trillion of money is lost for the tax authorities in Europe. 1 trillion per year. If only part of that would be gone to the tax authorities, we could pay back the debt, or we could finance a growth economy and growth project for Europe. Now, when the media started to take up the issue and published many of the things, even Mr. Cameron said it's time to wake up and smell the coffee. But it's not only to smell the coffee, to drink the coffee. Now it's time to drink the coffee and to do something against it. Or, well, sometimes Mr. Cameron also may drink coffee. Or, as it is said, the proof of the pudding is in eating it. And we will see, Cameron met Madame Merkel also, we will see what the governments will do. And I hope that you, Prime Minister, and other Prime Ministers, will not have only explanations like here and promises, but will work on that. Because this is also about fair integration. It is not fair that many of the rich can bring their money out into tax havens and the poor have to pay the tax anyway. This is not fair and we need to relaunch it. Why don't we have in Europe something like the Corporate Tax Fairness Act, like the US has it? Why should we look at the US fighting with Switzerland and others and trying to get their taxes, and we don't do anything? Therefore, we need the help. Luxembourg already moved. Austria will have to move. The Prime Minister made some remarks, and also the Minister of Finance will move. And then we have the common strategy, and we have to support the Commission and Commissioner Semeta on having a common strategy against tax evasion. I'm very happy that your Finance Minister, Jyrki, is working on this issue. I hope you give full support. I'm very happy that some of the Finance Ministers do something on this issue, which is very important to come to it. But of course, we have to work on the tax differentials in our European Union. We don't need a uniform tax, but at least at first a uniform tax base. It is not good that many of the companies from Portugal go to the Netherlands not in order to invest, but just to save taxes. This is not something about fairness and a European cooperation and about national responsibility going with Europe together. And of course, Prime Minister, I would be very happy if you could change your mind on the financial transaction tax, because also that could be a part of the fairness of the fair Europe we need and the fair integration. Why not join the other countries who go for that way? Maybe you will be convinced very soon, and I hope you will be convinced. To the end, yes, the Prime Ministers of Europe took up responsibility with the European Council. They have much more interest and engagement, and hopefully much more responsibility. And if we come to the way that fairness, transparency, which is very necessary for the tax issue, and social justice are high on the agenda, I think, Prime Minister, we can make a contribution really to a fair integration. This is what we need in Europe. But please think, in the Eurozone, fair integration which means much more integration than at the time when Finland could solve the problem alone. So Finnish example, yes, but Finnish example in a fair, transparent way in the Eurozone. That would be the good boosting forward of Europe. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Swoboda. Now, on behalf of the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats, Mr. Verhofstadt.
President. I want, first of all, Prime Minister, to associate myself and also my group with what had been said by you and by Mr. Barroso on the attack.